fully into it. Believe it or not.
I'm gonna look off your laptop if you need
Okay.
it. Here's the wood.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, last week I see on our calendar where we were supposed to be in work today, which y'all were. But when we set our goals, we said we were going to be in plan. And I don't know why we did that.
In plan?
Yeah, we said our goal for this week was going to be was for our plan, and we said that we were going to, evidence would be to have 80% of students working productively and 90% collaborating effectively. Students will show evidence of effectively using the interventions 100% of the time. And then the options we talked about were using the soft skills rubric, using the rock tickets, and perhaps giving a game day for the students that utilize a certain amount of points. Those are some of the options that we talked about.
I don't remember talking about that we were gonna be in plan. Cause we wouldn't have been in plan. Plan was Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah. And I was confused about that too. But it's okay. Did y'all get a chance to do any of those?
I mean, I did give rock tickets. I know I did that.
Yeah, I gave some out today.
But is
Oh,
it
so
just,
next week we'll be in the plan protocol.
Yeah, cause they wouldn't really use interventions in the
Yeah,
plan
They start
protocol.
work.
Which today they did, the kids who did use, I mean, we weren't in plan, but the kids who did use interventions today, the short time I was here, did use them.
okay, and what were some of your interventions that you
I
used?
said I gave interventions already.
Wait, that I used or that the kids used?
That the
When we-
kids used?
There was some girls who were throwing erasers, and so the little boy walked through the intervention process with them and wrote them interventions for being off task.
And he wrote it in the,
In his binder.
in his
The
binder, social
contract.
contact?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we started the, social contract today.
Don't ask me about that.
Okay, the one that you tweaked, the one I gave
Yes.
you?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And so that was their exit to have that filled out. And so they were pretty honest. I was shocked. For the most part, they were fairly honest
I'm
about.
telling you, it works.
Yeah.
And it's helped to keep with that documentation of who was absent or who got sent out of the room or whatever.
Well, I told them, I said I'll use it for your parents when I have to talk to and said, this is what your group thought of your behavior that day or what you were doing today. And so, you know.
And so that's what you're using at the end of the class
Yes.
period? Okay.
Mhm.
All right, well, let's look at the work protocol, the research protocol, and let's see what our goal was, since we were actually in research today. And I think y'all both chose the same goal for the research. Utilize effective questioning strategies as students analyze the problem. Utilize effective questioning strategies to foster deeper thinking. Utilize questioning to formatively assess student progress. Provide specific assessment feedback for students to use in decision making. Provide consistent, specific assessment feedback to learners about progress toward mastery of standards. Provide consistent, specific assessment feedback to learners about progress in use of career readiness skills, soft skills. And then personalized learning for students through workshops, resources, and DIYs and activities based on learner identified needs. So what do you think our reality is? What do you think we fall? And you could read the evidence. What would be considered evidence? And this is the direct wording off the rubric that y'all chose last week.
We were told we can't do pre-assessments in social studies. Or no, we can't, but it doesn't matter, cause it's the first time they're getting American history, so a lot of those we can't use.
Right?
Yeah, we did some of the open-ended questionings and, like inferencing and things, with an activity we did at the beginning of class where we were doing, domestic systems versus factory systems. And, so they had to figure out why or infer why, the employee, the worker would have more time or why they make different money,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
But that was just a bell ringer?
Yeah, we just started it.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
we
let's
just-
talk about the majority of the work time.
Well, I know I had
Go ahead,
students who were, oh, I'm sorry, continue.
No,
I
go ahead.
interrupted you. I know I had students who were struggling with some of the stuff. because they felt like they couldn't find the word or the answer that I would want in the book. And so I would question them, like I stopped them and I was like, don't look at the book, look at me, you know the answer. So talk me through this. And we talked through it that way. It's not necessarily, I mean, to me, that's kind of open-ended questions in a way. Am I right? Or, I don't know.
No, because the question came from you.
Then I don't have any of this.
They were responding to a question that was on the paper?
Okay.
Is that
Well-
what you're saying?
Let's take a look at the TEKS on the unit, plan, this first page on the unit plan. And let's look at the social studies TEKS. It's on the back of page 1. And so these are the TEKS for this unit, right?
Yes.
And so we have the knowledge statement is the student understands patterns of work and economic activities in the United States. Describe is the verb, the impact of mass production, specialization, and division of labor on the economic growth of the United States. Understands the impact of science and technology on society in the United States. Identify and predict. Okay, so let's think about our activities we did today. Do you think the activities we did today match the rigor of the TEKS?
Yes.
Mine didn't,
Yours didn't?
but they need the foundation.
Okay,
They need the knowledge set first, and then they can get into the actual research of it.
okay.
But they don't have the basics.
The background knowledge
Yes.
to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what were you gonna say?
Mine did. I mean, describing the impact. I mean, that's what they were doing today. That was the assignment that they were working on. Was they had to be able to tell me what were the effects, what impact did those things have on.
The cause and the effect one? Was it
Yeah.
cause and effect?
Mhm.
Diagram, okay. All right, now the other thing I wanna look at is, well, let me go back to this. So Ms. LaBruce, are we gonna be moving in then,
Mm-hmm.
next, into this now that we've done
Yeah.
Spanish? So maybe next week, our goal, when we set our goals, we may be moving towards matching the rigor and the
Yeah.
standards, okay.
Yeah, definitely. But they have to, they're not getting the basics yet. So that's why when they're testing, they're not doing well because they don't know the basics.
Mhm.
And they're trying to jump into, especially with these, TEKS and things, this stuff is difficult. And so they're used to trying to type in a question and get an answer. And I've already told them that's not going to work here.
Right,
That you're gonna have to really read and search. And so they need the basics before they can get into, even try to jump into that.
have you
I
tried to limit their resources?
To what?
To maybe the pathways that Mr. Hood has put in,
No, I haven't, but I could.
you know, just so that way they're just not searching wherever, they're just using
Oh,
those
their biggest
resources.
thing is going straight to answers.com or something like that and trying to type in a question and get an answer.
Right.
And so regardless of who put it in there or whatever.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm trying to get them to focus, and to actually read and get a knowledge base of the things before you try to answer any of these questions.
Mhm.
So, I don't know, they wanna see an easy answer and right there and write it down, and that's it.
Now, are they writing their own research questions, or are y'all writing them for them?
They write them
Yeah. they
as a
write-
team.
They write them as a team,
Mhm.
and so, and they're in their binders?
Mhm.
Can you show me an example?
I mean, these are credit, but, I mean, those are the research questions that they made,
Okay.
based off the need to know.
Okay, so, the date stamp is when you print them? Is that, or is the date stamp when they do them?
That's when they finish them, that's when
Okay.
they're completed.
That's when they're completed, okay.
Before they write them on that contract, I crit them for grammar, capitalization, all that kind of
Okay.
stuff, cause I don't want them to write, if it's not, they don't need to be using unpolished research questions. That's a part of the plan protocol, is to crit their questions.
Okay, so is there any way we can kind of incorporate this with our DIYs that we're doing?
Most
Right.
of the DIYs are pulled from those research questions.
Okay, so shouldn't they be writing on this where they're answering their questions, or how does it work? They turn in the worksheet you have them do with this?
Well, that's just for their documentation, that's their team contract, so that's for them to keep track of who has what research questions.
Okay, and then they turn
Um,
in that worksheet with this
Right,
to
in my
show.
room, they all have to do every DIY because we've been unsuccessful with kids sharing information, and that's been something that I've done before, is that they all do, so they all have the same knowledge base, kind of like what Bruce was saying, they all need the same knowledge base. Then once they're done with the DIY, which gives them the bottom level, then they go out and research for additional information. I give them the bottom, the very, very bottom of it, and then they have to go out and find more.
Okay,
To answer those questions.
okay, can it be, how can we make it more student driven?
What do you mean?
How can we make, I understand you need to give them that background, that foundation information. How can we make that more student driven? Rather than it's the teacher say, do this workshop today, this worksheet today, everybody's gonna do it. How can we do the same thing, but make it more student driven? We're like, oh, I need to answer this research question, so I need to complete a DIY.
Well, it's
Or I
more
need to
so, they
complete-
have a calendar, and based off the calendar, they know what information they need to find first. I mean, I don't say you have to do this today, that doesn't happen, except for one of my classes who needs the structure. But they know they have their first progress check on Friday, so I say, what is it? Okay, then maybe that's what you need, they know to look, if that makes sense. Like, they know that's gonna be the first progress check, that's the first thing that they need to have finished. Now,
Okay.
they don't all do that, and you know, but that's,
So you give them a calendar of when the progress check is,
yes.
and then they decide when they do their DIYs?
And there's I mean, I crit them, it's not like it's just an all for one, but, you know.
Except for your last period, the class we observed.
No, my third period, my fourth class, well, the fourth one today, cause they needed that structure.
Okay,
They were
so
having
they're
a
the
tough
ones that
day.
everybody does today, but that was just a today, for instance?
Yes.
Okay, okay, so
If
we
they
know,
need the structure, then I
take a step
fix
back.
things in order to make sure that my classroom is managed the way that it needs to be.
Okay, but we still wanna work towards giving them choice and,
Well, they have
Yeah.
it, except when they come in and act crazy,
Yeah.
then they don't have a choice anymore.
Can I ask a question, just clarifying question, so I'm not sure. Is that okay if I jump in? I'll make sure you're still in the video. I'll try to get you in there. So you're giving them that background knowledge before you even get to here, right?
Right.
Before you get to these teaks.
Mhm.
And in that activity that where they're receiving that knowledge, is that something that they're trying to like read something, fill in the blanks to get that knowledge, or is it just something that you're straight up providing them?
Well, I give them the DIY, you know, like today was a cause and
Mhm.
effect.
So my
So-
question is just something to think about, is that could you guys maybe, an option is maybe whatever they're lacking, you give it to them, and not where they have to hunt and search for it, but maybe you pull a student that has a certain role, and or they could sign up for a workshop for that. You provide that information, they go back, share it to their team, and then they have that background knowledge to then go and start answering those research questions.
We could, I can tell you from my past experience, it's never been successful.
Because
The idea of them going back and sharing information has just not been successful. Why, I don't know. This is my third year doing it, I've tried pretty much anything I can think of, and it's just, fifth graders just, I don't know if it's maturity, they're very, it's not, they don't wanna give the information, they're just here, copy. That ability for them to teach it is just not there.
Yeah, I remember you back here one day, you were having them present to you how they were gonna share it back out to the
And
rest
it-
of their
and
group.
some of the kids it works, and some of it doesn't, you know. And so, yes, it is an option, but it's not a one
Well-
size fit all.
Could you, like, maybe have them go to a workshop and pick an expert from that group, like one that you would trust, and they can go around to the tables, the one that it does work with, and share that information back?
I thought that students couldn't teach new information. We were told that students can't teach information for the first time, is what I've been told. So if
Okay,
it's the first time they're getting that information, then it needs to come from a
Okay.
teacher.
how about plan B? Doing like a metacognitive lesson in the beginning of the class. Remember, because they said, Alicia said you can do direct teach in the beginning, doing a metacognitive lesson.
And I have tried doing that and getting them started. We don't do all of it together, but I
Mhm.
mean, I have done where we read part of it together, get them at least started so they understand, answer questions, and then I release them to finish the rest of it. I did do some of that yesterday.
Okay. Okay. Good. Well, let's keep that up.
Okay.
And then, I'd like to really see that happening. Sounds exciting. Another call. Bobby Bobby made this, and I think I shared it with y'all before, but I want y'all to take a look at it again. And
Okay,
if
yeah.
you, can you able to see that?
Hmm.
Okay, so, there it is. So it has under launch, you do the hook, the teaming, the team conference, and under plan, we do our needs to knows and research questions. Where are your needs to knows? Are they in the binders as well?
Mhm.
Okay. And where do you keep yours? Where do you keep your needs to knows?
The class,
Uh-huh.
they're usually hanging on the wall. They're
The
not
one
there
over
this
by
time.
the lockers. We used to have
Yeah.
a poster on lockers.
Uh-huh.
And then under research work, this is for science, so that's why he has labs, but hands-on activities, maybe some journaling, research questions with resources. So for instance, you know how you put your resources out there when you do the resources. Progress checks, workshops, or a student data notebook, maybe some type of data analysis that they work on. Okay. And then he broke it down under research work, these are the type of activities that should be happening. So hands-on activities, labs, that's science. But I put reading groups. You could pull a reading group, because what happens a lot is they can't get through the text
Mhm.
to pull the information. So you could pull a reading group and do reading strategies with them so they can understand what they're reading.
Okay.
And then another group can be working on research questions while you pull that group. Because I think that's the big problem, why they're not able to do the work, because they can't read what they can't
Right.
comprehend what they're reading.
Right.
So maybe we can work towards that is an option,
Mhm.
and that'll help them being more autonomous with their work, more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So that's an option that we can do too for next week.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So let's look at work. Gonna be a work next week again, right? Correct. Correct me. Make sure I'm correct. Work, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna have the same goals next week. Well, let's talk about evidence. What kind of evidence are we gonna look for when we come in the room? Do you want us to see when we come in the room?
It really just depends on where they are and because for this project, they have to eventually, the project is they have to take a scientific innovation, some kind of invention that's been created, and they talk about where it came from, where it is now, and then they have to predict what's gonna be like in the future. So my hope for next week is that the kids are actually working on that and not.
Research and other stuff.
Right.
But as
So I
a
don't know what that looks like.
facilitator, though, what do you want us to see you facilitating the PBL or the ELM? If you're facilitating the research
Okay.
portion of it, what do you want us to see from you? We talked about maybe the reading groups.
We could do
Doing some of
that,
those.
I mean, depending on what time you come in, But yeah, that could be something you could see, depending on what time you
Okay.
come in. Yeah, cause we have to meet with Alicia on Monday, so watch my doodle.
Okay, so options are reading groups,
Checking for understanding, I don't
hands-on
know.
activity, checking for understanding. Okay. All right. And so, so you said you want to commit and do a reading group next week?
Well, it depends on what time you come in.
It'll be
I
the
don't
same
mind doing
time.
it.
It'll probably be about 1:30.
Okay, I mean, are you talking about whole group or a small group?
Small group.
Okay, I mean, 1:30 is when we're changing, so I wouldn't have a small group going on at 1:30.
That's probably the time I get here. It'll be after that.
Okay, I mean, after 2, I probably could make it happen, sure,
Okay.
if that's what's needed by my students.
Well, Bruce, what do you want to commit to?
That's fine, same thing.
Copycat.
Maybe we'll be.
Oh, we're on video.
Please do.
Okay.
We're on audio.
That'll go viral.
You're right.
Okay. Were there any glows? What's going well?
The kids seem more I don't know why, I don't know if it's just something they're more interested in, but they seem a little bit more motivated. We're first day of work, so I'm gonna say it lightly, but the two groups that I was here for actually, you know, they were willing to work today, so that was nice.
Well, they did remember something from the free enterprise system.
Okay.
So
So are
that was
your
a
kids
positive.
still remembering supply and demand? Cause mine are.
Yeah,
I'm
they
so
did.
glad
I was
drilled that
surprised.
into their head.
Good.
Well,
So
they
there's some
remember free
retention.
enterprise because I mentioned capitalism today, and so they were kind of like, oh, that sounds like free enterprise. So I was like, oh, okay.
So we come back to supply and demand, and so they're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that.
So
So
that
what
was
are,
a shock.
so what are some of our growths? What are things that you think that we need to work on?
Retaining information.
Well, you just said they retain.
I mean, really,
Well, that-
kind of what you said, they need to be like, they need to somehow, I don't know, I'm still working on it, become more motivated, you know, instead of me having to sit there and be like, keep going,
Mm.
they need to learn how to, and that's why today they were working silently, because they weren't getting any work done, they didn't, you know, I don't know how to do that, I haven't quite figured that part out,
Okay,
but
you
Bruce will figure it out.
Not weird.
need to be more self-motivating. All
And
right.
be willing to request workshops when they need it. My kids will not request a workshop to save their lives, even if they know they don't know it. They don't wanna, I don't know, maybe they need to come up with another system. I don't think they wanna go up and admit that they don't know something,
Well, maybe you can give them rock tickets if they request a workshop.
maybe. Something.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down. Okay. So our evidence will be social studies content, reading groups, right?
Mm.
Is there any needs to knows?
Not at this time. It's still early in the project, so next week might be a different story.
Any support you need? Anything you need me to help put together or model or?
Luckily, this project pretty much stayed the same from last year, so there wasn't a whole lot of recreation that needed to happen, so
Okay.
a lot of the resources I already had were
Well-
still valid.
Valid.
Yeah.
What about reciprocal teaching? How's that going?
Non-existent, I'll be really honest.
Okay. Maybe when you do your reading group, you can use the reciprocal teaching. Okay. So I'm gonna put that in our options too. Okay, I sent y'all some websites, some links.
Mm.
And it's that skateboard exhibit, student skateboard exhibit that they did. And I don't know if you heard us talking before, but there's a museum that they use skateboards to tell the history of skateboarding in Texas. And they gave the students a deck, a skateboard deck, and they did artwork on it that represented some portion of the history of skateboarding. And they did lessons on force and motion with it, and there's videos that went with the exhibit that were on force and motion. It was this whole elaborate exhibit. It's really neat. Anyway, I sent you links so they could kind of see what a student exhibit might look like,
Mm-hmm.
and it became so popular that other museums are requesting that exhibit to travel. They want to borrow that exhibit
Oh,
in
nice.
other museums.
That's
you
cool.
know, but it could show the power of a student exhibit.
Right.
You know, and maybe that'll help motivate them as well. Maybe you could use that for a bell ringer or something,
yeah.
reflecting on that. I don't know.
Because was there a video? I feel like there was a video. Correct me if I'm
There's a
wrong.
PowerPoint that shows them, and
Okay.
then there's a video, a force and motion video using skateboarding.
Okay.
You
Okay.
know, that,
That's probably what I was thinking of.
so I sent you the link of where you can get those videos.
Okay.
So I sent you two links: the link with the PowerPoint,
Mhm.
and then the link with the videos included. Okay. Any
Okay.
questions, guys? You see it?
The text and cultures.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's it. And they have other student exhibits, but one's like a quilt, and
Hmm.
the other one's like, you know, elementary parade float type thing.
Okay.
That might be not be as relevant, but I think this, if they see the skateboard one, they may be like, wow,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
skateboarding. So that may be more relevant for them. Okay, guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.